I'm Carlin Ramey. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm a Hamilton based storyteller and multidisciplinary artist.
So my name is Melanie Gall. My pronouns are also she and her.
Hi, my name is Kanika. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm a musician, a hip hop artist, and I'm here to talk a little bit with Caitlin today.
I'm Dave, and from the project Twin Twa, formerly Twin, for people who recently changed the name. Yeah.
And I'm Brooklyn, performing with Twin Twa and Forster Dress, and yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
My name is Ryan McFarling. I am a magician out of Sault Ste. Marie.
My name is Didi Divine. I go by, my pronouns are Zer, Zay, Zem, and yeah.
Hi there. My name is Mike. I'm two-spirit and non-binary. My pronouns are they, them. And on stage, I go by sibling.
Hi, my name is DJC. My pronouns are he, him, they, them.
Hi, my name is Mickey O'Brien. I'm born and raised in Coppercliff, Ontario, which is a suburb of Sudbury, Ontario. I'm a MC, producer, activist, third generation miner for Valet, formerly Inco. And yeah.
My name is Hannah Lindsay. I'm a active singer, songwriter, and performer. I played drums. I went to school for music for the past maybe like 6 years or so that I've been really focused into music.
My name's Eli Schulten. My pronouns are he and him.
North, I was able to submit my one of my favorite shows, the ADHD Project, which is my solo show about growing up neurodiverse and learning to embrace my disorder of ADHD and even find those positives and figure out what was meant for me through that. So that's what I sent in a recording for Fringe North, and yeah, and I had a great experience. It went really well. I had quite a few people watch it, which is awesome because I've never been there and no one's heard of me there. And so that was really, really positive. I told all the other artists on the tour, I was like, hey, this people actually watched it, because you never know with online. And so it was I was very happy. It was very exciting.
Yeah. I grew up in Edmonton, so I always knew about the Fringe, because the Fringe here, it's the biggest Fringe in North America. It's been running for years. So I went. I was one of those people who would go to the Fringe and not see any shows, just like eat hot dogs and watch the street performers. Like I was the kind of person that and now I'm just like, oh, come on, go to some shows. But I knew of the Fringe, and I thought it might be interesting to try. So I was still in 2010. I was still singing opera full time. Mostly in New York, sometimes around the world, and I got a Fringe slot, and I was like, okay, I'll do a show about Irving Berlin because I like Irving Berlin. I did not know about the whole copyright thing at that point, being different in Canada, so his songs were out of copyright in the States that I put in my show, and they weren't out of copyright in Canada, and I got my first cease and desist order. But anyway, it's fine. Wasn't fine, but it's fine now. I paid
bit
them
of an
a lot
adventure,
of money.
I'm sure.
Tears and money. Fix that one. But anyway, so I was like, I've sing the songs in recital. I'll write a show. Like, why not? So I was sort of writing that show and waiting for the Fringe to start. And I went and I sang in Bizet's The Pearl Fishers up in northern Vermont. And I was it's like a horror movie. I was in a cabin in the woods with 5 other opera singers for 3 weeks. And the horrible people. It was just like, when I left there, I'm like, oh my God, if this is success, this is terrible. Like, I've worked my whole life to be this unhappy with terrible, catty, awful, like backstabby, terrible people. Like, no. And then I did the Fringe and I was like, everyone's so nice. So, and I didn't stop singing classical music. It sort of kind of petered out because, like I said, you have to be like rapping on those gates or everyone forgets you within about 3 seconds. But the comparison between the communities, I mean, it was like finding a whole family doing the Fringe.
I think it might have been my first Fringe festival altogether, and it was a really great experience. Honestly, I got excellent feedback, and I don't know. I liked that me and DJC kept it short and sweet for the sake of future opportunities, as I mentioned in our last interview. And yeah, here we are in the future opportunity. Really, really smooth. Like everything that was presented to me was presented very fluid and just very digestible, on point, very, let me say that. Not timely. I can't remember the phrase at the moment, but everything was just very professional, and it was easy to read and easy to perform, just easy to be a part of. And I loved
Awesome.
it. Thanks a lot.
Many years ago, I did a bit of like sound, and I helped with sound once with a Fringe in Winnipeg. I had another band, and we did a bit of Fringe 12 years ago. So back in Winnipeg, I always liked Fringe because it was like different ways of occupying space in the city and different things. So I always thought it was great, like a great concept that the city's just alive with theater and performance and like people getting like quirky venues and some getting the big, like awesome venues, and there was a buzz in the city. So I knew it from Winnipeg's perspective, and that was a good perspective. Yeah.
And it was definitely my first time being involved with a Fringe. I have like a growing up theater background in Winnipeg, that kind of thing, but sort of, I guess, maybe put it to the side when I shouldn't have. And I feel like Fringe was like, oh, hello, you love all this. You love, formatting, designing, writing script, that sort of thing.
See, magic is an interesting thing because I think all kids have some layer of or some interest in, magic and illusion, and I was no different. I always found, watching the Paul Daniels magic show and those type of things on TV, there was always just something that really drew me to that. And I was also a very shy kid. So I remember trying to get ready for, when elementary school, when you had to do an oral presentation where you had to get up and talk about something for 5 or 6 minutes to the class. And I remember that used to just stress me out more than I could think of. And my dad actually said to me at one point, he said, well, you like doing magic tricks. So instead of trying to talk about things that you're learning right now, why don't you teach them something? Show your class a trick and do something. And I did that. And I realized that that scary room turned into something that was, everybody was interested. And I just realized in that moment, I think I want to do this forever.
I have to say it was a complete surprise for me, just because, with the pandemic, everything kind of shut down. And up to that point, I was mainly more in the acting field. Earlier in my career, I did kind of create some stuff myself just to kind of get myself out there. But I really never really considered myself like in the playwriting arena. Like I never really considered to go there. And then the pandemic sort of happened, and it's been like a couple of, it's been a while since I've done something creative. And then just this opportunity came to kind of create this piece through like sort of a workshop collaboration with some wonderful people in Toronto with a small little theater company. The name's not coming to me now, but I will try to remember it in a second. And then from there, we kind of just collaborated, and then this opportunity came to submit it, and I kind of just came in, and I was super surprised, and it was a marvelous experience. You were all so welcoming and open. Thanks. And just I felt like I was in safe hands, even though it was really nerve-wracking because you're like, oh, I have to put a show out to the public and I don't know what I'm doing. But it was great because you were all so open, and you were always there if we felt like we had any questions or if we need any assistance. It was really great. It was great to have that like really welcoming environment. It was really wonderful.
Oh, that's
the name sibling because I'm not much of a brother or sister, but I like to consider myself family of everyone. When I was a kid, my older brother, he's 5 years older than me. He got a guitar when he was 15 and I was 10. And I always wanted to play guitar like my older brother. So when I was 12, my mom bought me a little acoustic guitar, a little Blue Jay Junior. And I learned as many chords as I could. And I did my best to write as many poems as I could. And now 18 years later, I'm 30 years old and I just haven't stopped. I just decided to try out more instruments. I also play bass and mandolin, but predominantly classical guitar, like an acoustic.
Yeah, actually, that was my first Fringe North performance. I did a collaborative performance with the MC and artist Konica, who we've worked together for years and years now. And so we were really excited to kind of put something together for Fringe last year. The experience was actually pretty good experience. I enjoyed it. I got a lot of really good feedback about the submission that we did. The submission was just a short song that we had kind of put together over the course of a couple of weeks after we had learned that Fringe North was going digital. So we put together a little performance, kind of worked on it collaboratively in the weeks leading up to the day that we got together to do filming. And then we did the last collaboration right before we filmed. And then basically just turned the cameras on and went to it and took a few takes and picked the best one. And yeah, it was a really great experience. It's always fun working with Kanika because she is just, she's an absolute treat to work with. She's just, it's like a little sister, you know?
He's known I wanted to be a musician from a very young age. In fact, I've kind of always been puzzled around people that didn't know what they wanted to do with their life. I've always just been drawn to it. I remember putting on concerts for my mom when I was like at a very young age as a little kid.
Actually went to White Pines. I was interested. They have an arts and culture program there. It's called SHISM, a specialist high skills major program. So you have to, it's nothing intense or crazy, but just like people in elementary school that are looking to get into like more artsy kind of stuff. There's an arts and culture section and you have to audition to get in. So I initially went thinking, oh, musical like theater might be cool. I might want to act, but I went in and I like prepared this like Dorothy monologue from The Wizard of Oz. And then I choked last minute when I was in front of them. Was like, and they're like, okay, what do you have prepared for us today? And I was like, oh, actually, like, I think I want to go into music. Like, I got so nervous that I didn't want to like say and act this performance. So I said I wanted to go into music, which turned out to be so great because here I am today.
Awesome.
But yeah, so that's how I got started, kind of by accident in music.
My situation is a little different and unique because I already had an existing video.
Oh, nice.
And it was actually quite old. It goes back to 2013. So, and I think we worked on this project last summer, I believe, August 2020. So the video was already 7 years old, and I think it was Adam and
Sarah?
Sarah, yes,
Sarah, yeah.
Adam and Sarah. They had emailed me, and I had worked with Sarah before, and they asked me if I wanted to get involved with this project. And my first thought was, oh no, I'm gonna have to create a video because I don't have a lot of equipment. I have a couple of cameras around the house, but I don't have any editing software. I didn't have a laptop at the time and things like that. So I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to create a piece of artwork with a video? And I don't have a lot of equipment. But then I remembered I had this existing video already in the can, so to speak. And I was like, oh, perfect. And I had created it with a couple of other people in 2013. So as soon as I realized that, I said, yes, I'll do it. Yeah, and I'll send you this video. And I thought it would be easy peasy, in that regard. But then, I had homework. I had to do some artist statements. We had to do some translation because there's English to First Nations language. So we had to do that. I had to do some sort of post scripting for the video itself, and then plus a digital transfer, which took a little bit of wrangling, I guess, in that sense. So yeah, that's how that happened.
One of my favorite shows, the ADHD Project, which is my solo show about growing up neurodiverse and learning to embrace my disorder of ADHD. I just shift the show a little bit depending on the audience and who's there. Luckily, I've been doing it for a long time that it's pretty easy. I can even do it on the fly, which is nice. And sometimes I needed. Once I got booked for a kindergarten show, and I was like, "What? All right." That was different. So yeah, so there's anyone can pretty much book the show through Prologue, and not just schools, actually, different any city or community event that's looking for an act can book an artist from there. And also because we're kind of nearing the end of this pandemic, but we're still in it, you can book online, which is really cool because that means you
Awesome.
can probably have access to any artist that you want that's offering online content, because I think quite a few of them are. I am. And so the online is live through either Google Meets or Zoom, whatever kind of works for the people who are booking us. And then there's also a live talk back after. So it's still got that kind of live feel, just through the digital medium. Storytelling, and there's a bit of acting in it. And so they have questions about, I don't know, drama and this career in the arts. And then also because it deals with ADHD and mental health, and it's my kind of my origin story of my diagnosis all the way to going off to high school and college. So they have a lot of questions about that and about disability and mental health. And so it's kind of it's just great to have kind of, 15-20 minutes, or as long as they need. Really, I usually just stay on to ask whatever they need to ask and just chat and have a conversation.
I have two companies that I use when I tour. It started this whole thing, my whole Fringe journey started off with my sister and I were going to be doing shows together. So ergo sister scene. So she's actually works for the federal government, but she wanted to do more creative things. And I'm a professional performer. This is what I've trained for and I've done all my life. So we were going to do that, but then she got posted to Columbia. And so that didn't happen like a long time ago. She got her posting was in Bogota. So she went off to Bogota. I did it alone. And so I mean, but you end up building a name, you build an audience with the name of your company. So I've kept the company name because they're each based on usually a different historic group of music. I try to make things interesting for me because as a singer, as much as I love the songs I put in the show, you don't love them as much after doing it 200 times over 3 months.
Sure.
By the end, you're thinking of what toppings you want on your pizza that night while you're singing a love ballad. I mean, so you do need to keep things kind of interesting. And I do try to keep the music interesting by investing money and getting really good backing tracks, working with musicians I really like. So doing all that, but nevertheless, got to keep it interesting.
I like it because at the beginning of the set, it always feels like less pressure because there's less people paying attention. And then as my set progresses, because I do storytelling in with it, I guess it gets more people's attention and they start paying attention to my voice. And usually by the end of the set, at least 90% of the people in the building are paying attention to what I'm doing. So that's really cool and rewarding too. I just say what I feel is going to kind of give a brief synopsis of what the next song that I'm going to do is, and maybe throw in like a little something that relates personally to people in the crowd. It's taking the chunk of inspiration that created the song and just kind of breaking it down into like a little munchy bit for everybody to digest while they listen to the song. And oh, okay, so that's how she felt about it and how she resolved the problem and that whole situation. I'm a very visual thinker. So when I come up with a song and I'm thinking of like the storyline that's in it, I take kind of like maybe a sentence that's a summary of the intro and like the problem, and then a sentence that kind of is either the feeling that I got as a result of it or a hint at the lesson that I got as a result of it. And it's kind of like, it's going to leave whoever's listening wanting to listen to this song for the sake of the story that I've teased in my little munchy bit.
It just kind of was like opened a door of like, oh yeah, like we do all this stuff, and I guess in a way sometimes performing as musicians, like you can't stay like linear with it, and it just opened up all these ideas we already had to do. Like it was really exciting because it was like, oh, and then the ideas just started rolling and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we were already starting to challenge our performative aspects of our shows, like and just trying to create even like subtle elements of lighting and performance aspects to our music. And I think what was really challenging is we didn't have anything done, like finished when we applied for Fringe. We knew what the deadlines were to get the content there. And I think we had like we put that on ourselves. It's like, we got 3.5 weeks to do this. And we just it was great though. It was like sometimes that deadline, and we had the time and the resources this last summer to do it in that time period. And we just got obsessed with it. Like, and just the ideas started exploding off each other.
Life experiences, they can't help but get weaved into kind of how I do things, and how life experience plays a huge part in it, right? And that just I go through the same things that everybody else does. There's periods in your life where you feel you need to reinvent yourself, or you need to look at how you want to do things, or you get these new bits of information because we're always learning. So, and that's what I found was a lot of my magic changed from very straightforward, kind of very literal, as it were. Like, it was this, we're going to make this card change from red to blue, and then it would happen, and try to find, and that was literally the talk track was it, and it was because the sleight was the most exciting thing for me, because it was like I owned the tools and I want to play with them. And then as I got older and I realized, although that's fun, that's a puzzle. And how do you make a puzzle into something more is you have to tell a really good story. And the story doesn't have to be long-winded, and it doesn't have to be, a story in the sense of formal novels and everything that way. It's more, you have to take a premise and take a principle of magic and put them together and see what happens. And then determine what you're trying to say out of all of that. And if it doesn't hit on, those ideas that you're trying to, if it falls away, I guess I should say, from the premise or the plot of what you're trying to do, then you know that you have to keep working on it. And there's nothing better than when you finally work on something and have that piece, pull those pieces together, and all of a sudden it just clicks. And then, I mean, it's, as a good friend of mine, JK, says, it's like when you get into flow state, that's what you want to be in, because everything just works, and that is the high for performing. I strongly believe that.
Well, I've done primarily up to that point, I've done mostly theater, and then I kind of dabbled more into the film world for a while. So what was more fantastic about this is it felt like it was a whole new experimental space where, we could just try anything and see what happens. And that was really beautiful. I mean, the whole part of this play that was being created, Face Your Fears, was just me and Kyla Yager, the other wonderful artist that I worked with on this project, a marvelous abstract artist based both in Toronto and New Orleans, is that we sort of created chain reaction of art from each other. And then out of that, this project grew. And that was really beautiful to see, just to sort of, have all of this energy and creativity jump off of each other. And that's really that's the heart of anything that you do as creative, is just jumping with energy. You just need to run with it. Do what you feel is your gut feeling. And sometimes you're not going to have everything figured out, and that is okay. Art is just like life. You're not going to know the end result. You're not going to know what's going to happen. And that's where you just need to say, you know what? I'm going to do it. And so for anybody out there who is not sure, they have something in their mind, maybe a play or a piece or anything, or they want to do something and they just don't know, I say, do it. The worst thing that can happen, it doesn't work out, and you learn something from it, and maybe moves you into a different direction. But at least try.
I find a lot of the riffs that I'll write on a guitar or a bass will just be a vehicle for the poetry that I've been producing. So I really like writing a lot. Like, professionally, I try to consider myself like a poet or like a lyricist. I do hip hop and I do folk, so a lot of syllable play and a lot of like fun stacking of words and rhyming with like more complex schemes. Like I'll do double or triple syllable rhymes quite often, and then stack 4 of those, so there's 12 syllables per line, and it makes like really fun flows and grooves to kind of get some math involved with the poetry. Anytime anyone asks me of like, like how do I learn how to paint, or how do I learn how to draw, or like, how do I play guitar like that? I would always tell them that like, well, you have to just really suck at it for 10 years and keep doing it, no matter, because it's not about mastery in anything, because it doesn't matter. Like if someone is like, knows all the scales on guitar and they can play really fast, like Yngwie Malmsteen, and it's just like, what you want to do with art is express yourself. So what is it you're feeling or thinking, and well, how do you want to share it? That's all art takes. And everyone will do that on the first try, even as a 4-year-old with a crayon. You're doing it right, no matter what you're doing. But I think everyone is an artist and a musician, You hear a song on the radio and you want to bob your head to it. You know rhythm, drums, basically. So we're all artists and musicians.
As always, once I sit down with my vinyl and I actually listen to it and I go through it and I pick out certain things. I'm like, you know what, I really like this song. Maybe I could build something around the vibe that this song is bringing out into the world, but what other songs would I pair with it? So typically my process would be, I'd go through records and I'd have a little bit of an idea. Okay, so what is the vibe that I want to do? Is it going to be up tempo? Is it going to be dancey? Is it going to be like high energy? Is it going to be like a very laid back kind of low energy, like maybe contemplative? What kind of imagery am I trying to bring forward with this? Is it like a mud puddle or like a flower bed, or what is it? Is it a squirrel running up a tree? What is it? I'm trying to think like in terms of scenes that it might be invoking, right? When you listen to the mix, right? And that, like thinking about things in terms of that is like, it can be kind of difficult sometimes to pick songs like that would actually fit something like that. Because it's not like, oh, I want to do like a disco mix or I want to do a rap mix. I mean, I did do those things. I did a rap mix. I did a couple of rap mixes last year, but I wanted to make them something a little bit more interesting than here's a mix of rap. I mean, the world that I come from, every DJ is doing that. Like there's always gonna be somebody out there that's like, here's my my tech house mix, and here's my disco mix, and here's my reggae mix, and here's my whatever, like genres and stuff like that. And whereas I was just more thinking like, hey, what's the visuals that this is going to be giving out, and like maybe it changes at some point. I mean, any good story doesn't stick with the same visual the entire time, right? There's got to be progression, there's got to be change, there's got to be a beginning, middle, and an end. So I was thinking of it in terms of story more than I was anything else. And then there were, of course, the other mixes that I did too, where I was just like, what's a strange concept? Like, what was the one I did in March? It was like a rap bingo. It was, so somebody had asked me that was a member of the Tape Club, could you just do like a mix of like more modern rap and like, like some of the newer underground guys? And I'm like, well, I do have a lot of those records, but that's not an interesting mix to me, just like putting them together and playing one after the other and everything like that. I mean, yeah, it's a great way to get the music out and to have people discover it, but what brings it to that next level? So Rap Bingo was the idea that kind of came out of that. I was in the craft room in our house there with my my partner, and she was on her computer playing some online bingo, because again, we're moving to digital, right? She was playing some online bingo with some friends. And I asked her to show me how it all worked. And she goes, well, there's this website, you can set it up and it generates these bingo cards, spits them out, and then it lets you play the game right on the website. And I'm like, okay, show me. And so she's showing me and everything like that. And meanwhile, in my head, my cogs are turning and I'm like, what if we were to just make this like rap mixtape into a bingo game where like, so what I did was I went back and I listened to the whole, like I mixed the whole tape. I listened to all the lyrics of the different MCs that were on display throughout the tape. And I picked certain phrases and words out from the mix and I wrote them down. I did like 150 of them, wrote them down in this notebook. And then I went onto that website that she showed me and you could actually plug those in. So you don't have to do like N42 or G, whatever, right? You can actually like change them to whatever you want them to be. They don't have to be numbers. So I threw all those phrases in and it spat out these little like 5x5 bingo cards with little phrases on them, right? And so then I printed those out on newsprint because, bingo cards, newsprint, right? And included those in the tape. So when they got the tape home, whoever had the tape, they could actually take all these little bingo cards and, oh, I'm listening to this mix, but I can also take my bingo dabber and see, hey, did I get a line? Did I fill a card? Whatever, right? So
the stories. It has the most words. I love the poetry behind it. The ability to see something unfold, like with your mind, just by like the way they're telling the story. It's really incredible. Like you listen to a Ghostface Killer song or an Eminem song or a Slick Rick song, and just, you know, or a Biggie song, and you just like, it's like the way they tell a story, it's, you can picture everything just happening right in front of you, and it's the most mind-blowing thing. Or even just like, you know, just one-liners in rap can be like so mind-blowing, you know, like trying to say something and not swear. Like, but it's like there's so many conundrums going on in one rap song that it's just, it's such an unbelievably deep art form lyrically compared to any other style of music.
Being a songwriter, you are kind of putting on an act. Like, I like going up there because I am being myself, but I get to be this person that I wouldn't typically be or ever dare say like out loud to somebody's face. But in that moment that you get to perform that and say that out loud, you're like, I'm just me in my head, and this is what I would say if I wasn't so worried about what other people thought or like of me, or, you know, I'm not worried about hurting people's feelings when I'm up there. Like, I've written songs that are kind of like are very passive aggressive, but it's just because, you know, I'm getting out my energy and how I feel. But, you know, I don't care because I went through this and this is just how it is. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. And so I think you are kind of putting on this like performance aspect. So I like that about going up there, because you kind of get to take on this new persona, but you're you still and telling your own story. So that's what's cool, because you're a character, but you're your own character in a different way, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, the video itself, it's very quiet, so there's not a lot of sound effects. There's no music. You hear a lot of like sort of ambient sound, like wind and that kind of thing. And they're basically just portrait shots of the community of Moose Factory. So some major landmarks. So you see the local hotel, Eco Lodge, a church, I think the Moose Creek Complex, which is where the local grocery store and our local First Nation are housed in there. And there's different landmarks, these physical landmarks, and then you see like, you know, a river, a moon, you know, and they're sort of intercut with these students, these young people. Then at the very end, spoiler alert, there's a shot of an elderly man walking down the road, and he walks right up to the camera, and he actually puts his face right to the lens, and he says hi, and then he ends up speaking to me. And that was the morning we shot the sunrise. It was supposed to be this, I was hoping for this beautiful wintry sunrise where it's blue sky, and you know, but it ended up being kind of overcast, and we still got a decent shot of the sunrise. But when that happened, it was another moment where we're standing there, and I was just sort of, we're shooting we did a couple of takes of the sunrise, and I looked down the road and I saw somebody walking down the road. I said, "Oh, that looks like an elder." And then they turned the camera, you know, to look down the road, and they started shooting it. And I said, "I think that might be Jack." I said, like, I kind of recognized the gait of the elder. And then he walked again, like I said, he walked right up to the camera, and I said, and our dialogue is right there in the video. I said, "Good morning." I said, how are you? And he's like, "Oh," you know, and he's talking away and talked about the weather, and, you know, he really interacted with us, you know, like nicely. And then I even sort of complimented him, or about, you know, "Oh, you're gonna be a movie star," you know, or just being sort of complimentary and sociable, you know. But he kind of he didn't go into that. He didn't really pay attention to that. He just said, "Oh yeah, okay, have a good morning, bye," and he left, you know. And we're sort of, and then I kind of looked at my crew, and they looked at me, and we, "That was cool, you know, that's really neat." and then Marie, the editor, she decided to put that shot in right at the end. And it sort of ties the whole piece together. And he is a World War II vet, and he passed away about 3 or years after that, like 20, I think it was 2017 or 18, he passed away. So it was incredibly fortuitous, but it's also really touching to have that footage of him.
Audience members and having them remember you and you remember them, and like those connections are so important too. Like it's amazing how many friendships I've had with my billets and audience members, not just artists. And those little moments like that where, you know, it's totally someone that will stick with me for the rest of my life, because that's the reason why I'm doing the show. Like what better you know, incentive to keep going and to keep sharing your story than, you know, having a 9-year-old kid run up and be, you know, kind of a little version of you. And
So
I
sweet.
yeah, I wish I had that when I was diagnosed. I wish I had someone be like, hey, it sure it is rough. I relate, but also there's positives too. And there, you know, like be able to talk about it honestly, but still add in a little bit of sunshine. Yeah, so I could talk forever about the great experience I've had on Fringe, because it's so loving, and the audiences are, you know, for the most part are really wonderful.
Want the audience happier when they leave than when they come in. Like you want to give them something nice. And so if you're new at doing this and thinking like, what can I do? What can I do that will be at least relatively successful and that I'll enjoy doing? Like bring the audience along on a fun journey. Like we need fun. Like after this year, what's going to sell is not going to be your COVID story. Like it's just not. And there will be a lot. Like I'm already hearing people who are going to the Edinburgh Fringe talking about like, I'm going to do a COVID show. And I'm like, no, because we've lived it. Like we're good. Like do a show, but do a juggling show. Do a show about that time like you lost your passport and I don't know, had to breed gerbils in Mongolia to get enough money to get out. Like something. Just do a show that'll make us all feel better about life. That would be my and do a show. Just do it. You know, just don't have big expectations, but do a show. Why not? Right? And go to Fringe North.
I've been able to adapt to some virtual things. As far as being an artist goes, it's forced me to expand into like actually creating different things that I've wanted to do, like workshops. Creative writing workshops is something that I've been toying with the idea of for a really long time now. But now with COVID reducing the amount of time that we can invest in live shows and that we have to create tickets and do the promotion for all of that, I have this abundance of time to spend with myself figuring out how to flesh out a workshop for people. So I actually have been able to develop a workshop, and I've gotten opportunities now to begin actually doing the workshop online starting next month. So
That's awesome.
It's actually a workshop that developed as a result of COVID. So
that's really cool.
And just music is so powerful for connecting beyond anything across the world. And I think that made a big impact on me. Seeing like I remember as a kid there was this project called Playing for Change, and it was like one artist did one part of a song and then the track went to another part of the world, and they put something to that song and it became this whole piece of people who had never been in a room together. And so I think projects like that, I was like, oh, like music can really really connect you to the world in ways that you wouldn't otherwise expect.
People are craving the live entertainment side, right? And that's a wonderful thing, especially in a lot of the smaller communities where a lot of the entertainers are typically well known, right? Because you know them and you've seen them before and everything else. But now it's been long enough that not only do you want to see what they're up to, but you miss the fact that it was always there and then it hasn't been. And that's a really important part of it, because there is incredible talent across this country that from the little hole in the wall places to the biggest theaters. I mean, you could walk in and just have your mind blown by watching somebody, you know, do their craft and realize like, and it happens in every small town in Canada where it hits a certain level and you have people walk up and say, "What are you doing here? You don't belong here." And you know what? They're part of the community, and that's an awesome thing, and that you don't get to really experienced that many of those experiences in life, and I think that it's just a really important thing where everybody wants the same thing, and as long as we do the right things, we can get back to it.
And just be open to learning, be a sponge. I like to use this analogy. Life is water and you're the sponge. Just put yourself on the water and just take it in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like giving myself challenges. I'm very competitive with myself. If I have done something, or if I think of an idea that'd be like, that would be trippy, then I go for it and I don't stop until it's done, basically. So I find myself doing things that I didn't think I was capable of because I didn't tell myself I was incapable of it.
Mhm.
If you don't give yourself restrictions, you can make a lot more than you realize. I think
Mhm.
everyone can.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like removing those self-limitations and limiting beliefs about ourselves, for sure.
Mhm.
We can go so much further.
Not everybody's going to be able to continue rapping for the rest of their lives, or making music or art or whatever like that. There's always going to be a new generation of folks that come in after the previous. But to like build those bridges, I think, because I think that there's definitely like an aspect of like, at least in some circles where it's like, if you're a certain age that, oh, I couldn't talk to him, he's like way older than me, or like she's way younger than I am, I wouldn't want to spend my time messing around with that. I don't think they would understand. But like, taking that chance, like with them, you'd be surprised how much they understand, or that you would understand them, like, or what, like the mutual understanding that happens once you try to build that community.
There's not much to do for kids. They need something positive to look at a way out, to brighten up their day. Hip hop is a way out of that. It's the biggest music in the world. We need positive role models to show them that there's productive things that they can do with their lives. And, hip hop can show that to them, right?
The more you write, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
And not just with the mechanics of writing, like, run-on sentences and grammar and all that stuff, but also creativity, sort of creating. It's sort of it gets easier to sort of create, and to sort of come up with ideas and just sort of harbor sort of a creative mindset when you sit down, instead of sitting there and like going, I don't know what to write. It's sort of just sit there and start, just flow.
I really hope people take, if anybody could take anything away from this, is that you take those opportunities and maybe don't have a closed mind about anything. Just, go into anything, like within the arts or just whatever you're passionate about. Go into it with an open mind, because you never know, like you could make a mistake and it could lead you to the rest of your life and what you're passionate about. And yeah, and honestly, Suzanne Marie is doing a great deal right now of being very arts and culture focused and forward, and taking that motivation and not stopping with it. So I'm really loving what I'm seeing, and I can't wait to see what else there's going to be offered.